It is a major shift for the city's rental market. Starting today, landlords and not tenants will have to cover broker fees when renting out an apartment. We have actually been here once before in New York. There was a state rule in 2019 that tried to ban broker fees. It was struck down, so the city council took another run at it. The FAIR Act was passed by the council last fall. Real estate groups sued to try to stop it. They argued it would hurt the rental market. A federal judge rejected that attempt to pause the law, saying that was a challenge based on a policy disagreement rather than some sort of actual constitutional issue. Street Easy did an analysis and found that the broker fee ban will make a big difference on the cost to get into an apartment. Right now, the average renter has to come up with almost $13,000 to get the key to an apartment when you consider the rent and the security and the broker fee. Without the broker fee, that same apartment for the tenant would be less than $9,000 up front. Olivia Leach has been speaking with renters in Astoria this morning and joins us now. Hi, Olivia.
Good morning, Pat. Yeah, those brokers' fees can really add up for renters across the city. They can be 1 month's rent all the way up to 15% of your annual rent. One listing we found that's active here in this Astoria neighborhood, $3,400 a month, and that broker's fee could be $3,400 a month, all the way up to more than $6,000. The renters we talk to here say, they come to Astoria because it's affordable, but even for them, all of these fees added on to start a lease are just out of their range. Now, advocates of the broker fee ban say it brings more fairness to the city's rental market. But with the FAIR Act going into effect this morning, some do have concerns about how this will impact brokers and real estate agents across the city. Others also worry landlords could raise the rents to offset the cost of brokers' fees. Renters in Astoria we spoke to say the fees are exorbitant, so they welcome the change.
I think that's good as a renter, right? We have less we have to pay as we move apartments, right? So it's a good thing.
I feel like a lot of the time getting an apartment in New York City can be already incredibly competitive. So one way that they separate is they make the broker's fee really high, and then they add a bunch of different fees, and it's impossible to move anywhere.
Some of them cannot afford, and some of them are, living and barely making ends meet. So, it's not fair to them when that increase comes and they don't have the money to pay.
Yeah, a lot of those renters say they're cautiously optimistic. They're a little worried that landlords could just add those fees back into their monthly rent, but of course they are happy to see this change. But if you are apartment searching in the weeks and months ahead and you notice a landlord or an agent is trying to charge you that broker fee, you can actually report it to the city by calling 311 or going to nyc.gov/consumers. Pat?
Okay, Olivia, thank you. There was a last-minute challenge to try to stop the FAIR Act from going into effect. The Real Estate Board of New York filed a lawsuit. Yesterday, a federal judge rejected that challenge. In a statement, REBNY reacted, saying, "We're disappointed the injunction was denied. New Yorkers will soon feel the FAIR Act's impact. As listings shrink and rents rise, they say we'll continue to pursue this case and consider an appeal." City Councilman Chiosei is with us this morning, one of the sponsors of the bill. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on.
Look, there's a lot to get into. I want to start with that statement from REBNY. What they say is that the tenant ends up paying anyway, that it'll be built into rents. And to some extent, I think that's undeniable. Why do you think this is a better approach for tenants?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's funny that the landlord lobby, which is the Real Estate Board of New York, is now concerned about people's rents going up when many of them and their membership get paid when rents go up. So I think people should have that should be a red flag to people to see that REBNY is concerned about this bill. But I disagree with that statement for multiple different reasons in terms of the rent going up with the passing of this bill. First and foremost, 44% of housing stock for tenants within New York City is rent stabilized. So it would be illegal for landlords to bake the fee into the rent in nearly 50% of the housing that exists within the city. In addition to that, rents are set by market forces. If your landlord could increase your rent, they would have done so yesterday.
So in the rent stabilized housing, what does that mean? Do landlords just put more effort into listing apartments themselves rather than than tossing those listings over to a broker who's going to tack on that fee?
Yeah, so there was a New York Magazine article that came out a couple days ago that went out in the field and discussed with landlords, with brokers, with tenants how this will take place. Some landlords may just eliminate the broker as a whole and do the process themselves and list the apartments on their own. They rather have a tenant in their apartment than not have a tenant in their apartments, because then they won't be making any money.
A lot of people make their money as real estate brokers in the city. Some of them are hardworking people who are trying to pay their own rent.
Yeah.
What do you say to them? They're caught up in the middle of
Absolutely. I believe that there are some brokers who will stay in business, especially the professional ones, those who have been doing this work for many different years. We worked with some tenant side brokers to put this bill together. I hired a broker to find myself an apartment. I am hiring a broker to help us find a new office space. I think this will wean out some unprofessional brokers, those who don't even arrive at a listing or an apartment showing. And we'll see a change in who makes up the broker market, professional brokers versus unprofessional brokers.
There's a lot of money on the other side of this. Legal fees are expensive. Do you think we've heard the last of these challenges to this law?
REBNY is going to do everything in their power to try to make the city as unaffordable as possible. That's why they're teaming up with former disgraced Governor Andrew Cuomo. But I do believe that we are in a good place. We have the support of Governor Hochul, who passed an amicus in support of this bill.
I mean, you've kind of touched on it here. We're heading into a month where we have a mayoral primary, where affordability and the cost of rent in particular is a big factor. We're heading into the final process for the Rent Guidelines Board for the increase for rent stabilized apartments. The arguments on both sides are the same. Tenants will tell you that this city is just too expensive and rent is one place where they could get relief. Landlords will tell you that costs have gone up dramatically, and in the case of the Rent Guidelines Board, they say when insurance is up, when utilities are up, when property taxes are up, we have to get that money from somewhere.
Well, listen, Mayor Bill de Blasio did a rent freeze when he was mayor, and the city was not in shambles because of it, right? Landlords still had their homes, still owned their properties, and we could do it again. I believe that this June 24th, when voters are looking at their ballot, they should be voting for Zohran Mamdani and anyone else but Andrew Cuomo, who's receiving a lot of dollars from the real estate lobby that has made this city as unaffordable as it is.
When you talk to the young voters who respond to your social media posts, is there a sense that this is a moment for change?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of New Yorkers feel that way after what happened in November when Trump won. People are feeling the pressures of unaffordability within the city, and they want people who are taking a different approach to governing rather than the same old politicians who are bought out by the very industries that are hurting us.
Good to have you on this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Thank you for watching our YouTube channel. Let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth political coverage, and click the subscribe button right here. You can also download our app or watch us on TV to learn more about the candidates, where they stand on the issues, and more. We'll see you then.